Hello and welcome to another Helm's Deep beta preview with me, Balthelion. Today I'm doing the Hunter class and I'm joined here with my Hunter Eorodane, who is one of my two hunters that I have in the game. So starting off then, let's talk about the skills that have been removed from the Hunter. Now most of these are made up for in skills and traits. It's still a pretty short list, but there is one major point of contention in here that's going to bother most hunters, but we'll get to that in a second. So first off then, the first skill that's going to be removed is Needful Haste. Now, although that skill has been removed, it is now going to be a proc buff with the same name for the Bowmaster tree. So we'll be covering that once we look at the Bowmaster traits. Similarly, the Fleetness skill has been removed, and that is now a proc buff for the Huntsman trait tree. And again, we'll cover that when we get to the Huntsman tree. Next up, there is Swift Stroke. That's been removed, but there are alternative defensive stat traits available. Most of those, if not all of those, might be in the Trapper line, but they're pretty low hanging fruits, they're easy to pick up. And on top of that, the Huntsman will now pretty much be kiting most of the time they're dealing DPS, so in theory they shouldn't need the defensive buffs too much, certainly from melee based attacks. Next skill that's been removed is Hunter's Art. That's pretty much been ignored by most of the Hunter community because it's too much of a pain in the backside to use, and some of those buffs aren't particularly worth it. So that skill's been removed, but those buffs are covered elsewhere in the trait trees and some of the skills and stances, so we'll go over those when we get there. Cry of the Predator is the next one, and that has been removed, and there is, off the top of my head, no replacement for that. But there's still plenty of CC available to the Hunter, as we'll cover. Now, the next one is the big bone of contention that Hunters are not happy with at the minute. Agile Rejoinder has been removed from the Hunter's setup. So, the Huntsman tree still has Strength of the Earth. Bowmaster tree has Press Onward. Trapper tree, off the top of my head, has no more healing based skills. I might be wrong about that, but we can cover that in a sec. But Agile Rejoinder was kind of a main skill for a Hunter, just to get that bit of extra healing going, particularly if you paired that with Swift Stroke to guarantee you get the parry to open up Agile Rejoinder. So it's going to take a while for Hunters probably to adjust to not having Agile Rejoinder in their skill sets. It may still turn up before launch, who knows, but since it hasn't been added in beta at all so far, despite all the cries for it, I'd say it's probably not going to show up before launch, but we could be surprised. So next up then, let's talk about the general skills. Okay, so general skills are going to be the skills that are always available to the Hunter, regardless of what trait tree you specialise in. So these skills you will slowly unlock as you level up through the game. They will be unlocked by level. I think most, if not all of these, will be automatically granted to you and placed on your skill bars once you reach the new levels. So many of these may now be accessible at lower levels than you would do normally, especially the legendary traits. You'll probably find you'll get those pretty quick. Now there are actually a lot of these to go through, and most of these haven't changed, so I'm not going to spend too long talking about these. I'd like the burglar one, my notes are probably not going to be in the right order, but I will go through these. So improved Swift Bow is basically exactly the same as live, still same inductions, free attacks and all that. Quick Shot is again pretty much the same. You've still got improved Quick Shot in there as well. That's exactly the same as live. Barbed Arrow, again, no change. It's still going to do your damage over time, same induction. Distracting Shot, now that's a it's not a legendary skill, it can be upgraded by a legendary skill. You still got that available to you. Again, no changes there. Bard's Arrow, which was a legendary skill, is now available to you regardless. So no change to that one either. Dazing Blow and improved Dazing Blow. So the upgraded version of that still removes corruptions, and that is exactly the same, but obviously the original version doesn't remove corruptions. Low Cut is again same as live. Still does it slow and whatnot. Blindside, again, same as live. You can see a pattern going on here. Penetrating shot, again, same as live. We've still got the normal and the improved version, which has no cooldown. But both of those are going to be the same as live. Improved merciful shot is somewhere on my list. Yep, there's no change to that as well, but this can be changed by traits, particularly with that 50% health requirement, but we'll get onto that when we get onto the trait trees. Bright campfire is exactly the same as live. Purge poison, again, exactly the same. Set trap is exactly the same as live, but can be modified via the Trapper of Foes trait tree, which we'll cover in a bit. Cry of the Hunter, again, exactly the same. And the three tracking skills, Passage of Nature, Passage of Foes, Passage of Shadow, is same as live. Camouflage, again, exactly the same. Beneath Notice and Improved Beneath Notice, exactly the same. And curiously, it still keeps its threat modifier, whereas most of the class skills for other classes have removed their threat modification bonuses, but Beneath Notice still has that. Focus and Improved Focus, again, exactly the same. Intent Concentration, exactly the same. Now, the stance skills are where things are going to get interesting, and it's probably best if I cover these all at the same time. So if I just bring up these 3 tooltips, stick one there, and one there. Now, for the most part, these are pretty much the same, but you'll notice each of these now has a 10-second buff attached to it. So Endurance gives Evade Chance, Precision gives Finesse, and Strength gives Crit Rating, and you will get that 10-second buff the moment you switch into a stance. So if I do that now, if I switch to Precision, I will get that buff there, and that will slowly tick down. Strength, exactly the same, but it's going to be Crit instead of Finesse. And Endurance will give me 10% evade chance. So that now kind of makes up for the loss of Swift Stroke, which would give you percentage parry buff, was it? Was it? No, static rating, wasn't it? So you got a bit of defences coming off of this as well. Endurance is the one that's seen the most change though, because instead of giving 5% parry chance permanently, it will give you 10% evade chance when switching into there for the 10 seconds. Still got its ranged power cost removed from that. It doesn't say, although the description says it lowers threat, there is no minus 10% or whatever threat listed on there, so I'm not sure which of those is wrong, whether it should still lower threat or whether the description's wrong, so I'm not sure about that. It also makes no reference to quick shot lowering threat anymore when we're in that stance, although it does say quick shot returns morale. So I'll probably be doing some testing in a bit to confirm that is the case and how much that's going to be. So you might even be watching that as I'm talking about this once I edit things together. Stance precision, you're still going to have your bow critical multiplier legacy, which is why I've got 1% on there, so you might not see that if you don't have the legacy. And it still gives you 1 focus every 5 seconds, but that can be buffed in the Huntsman tree, and pretty strongly as well, but we'll cover that when we get there. And Strength Stance still does its 10% range damage, so pretty much the same there. Now each of these buffs, you will notice, last for 10-second duration. However, each stance has a 5-second cooldown, so potentially, if we work into our rotation, we could keep 2 of these buffs up. So we get Precision buff going there. Switching to Endurance stance, you'll see we've got both of these buffs running simultaneously. So potentially, if you wanted to do some stance dancing, and then switch into a stance, do a few skills, switch another stance, you can keep 2 of those buffs up permanently. But it's going to require a lot of clicking and it'll wear your fingers out. But yeah, it's some reasonable buffs there. Might be worth doing. You might decide it's not worth, but the option's there if you want to do it. Next up, we have Find the Path, and there is no change to that. Surprise, surprise. Desperate Flight and Return to Camp both work exactly as they do on live, but they no longer require any travelling rations at all, which is quite handy. Desperate Flight does have quite long cooldowns still. I'm not sure whether that's intentional, because most long cooldown skills are being removed in Helm's Deep, being lowered considerably. But I'm not sure about the Hunter's devs stance on that, so that may be subject to change. Similarly, all your guide skills, which will port your fellowship around, or just yourself if you're on your own, these no longer require travelling rations, so you don't have to worry about having those. Particularly if you're putting around everywhere, you needed quite a few rations, and then you'd run out in the middle of nowhere, and that would be a bit awkward. But yeah, those don't require any travelling rations, so that's pretty nice as well. You've still got your consumable skills, so your bow chance, your light oil, fire oil. Traps should also still be there in consumables, but there's going to be so many traps in the Trapper of Foes line, which we'll see soon. And something else to note as well, that most of your, or all of your, I should say, hunter range skills will be reduced to 30 meters range by default. So we can see that barbed arrow, swift bow, quick shot there, they're all 30 meters range. Now, the reason for that is because Huntsman and Trapper of Foes are now shorter ranged, whereas Bowmaster is a longer range sniper, and by default that will have an extra 10%, not 10%, 10 meters range, so you'd have your default 40 meter range that you do on live only in Bowmaster tree now, whereas the Huntsman is more of a mobile, shorter range, fast attacker. The Bowmaster is a long range sniper basically. So bear that in mind when we're looking at these tooltips going into the trait trees. And the last other thing to note as well, that some skill animations will be changing ever so slightly. So you may notice some differences when we go through some of these. But without much more delay, let's have a look at the trait trees, starting with Huntsman. Okay, so the Huntsman trait tree then. If we open up the trait tree panel with the Gandalf button, we can see our three various trait trees. Now I'm not going to be giving too much explanation to how the trait trees work in this class video, because I have already done a video specifically on how trait trees work. So if you need to understand how trait trees work before you look at these skills, please check out my other video, the link's on the screen now. So Huntsman then. Mobile harassing mid-ranged hunter. A mid-ranged mobile harasser who deals sustained damage while free to move. They unload rapid volleys, dealing damage quickly. So by traiting into this tree, we can get two skills straight away. So the first of those is Scourging Blow, and the second of those is Barrage. So put those on the side there. So Scourging Blow, melee attack, it will synergise with your barbed arrow, and it will do extra damage, but it will stop the bleed. And Barrage is a quick attack that deals more damage each time it is used. Now there's a catch to that, which you'll see down the bottom. Every time you use it, it will do 30% more damage, but it will cost 50% more power. And that quickly stacks up pretty fast. And if you spam that too much, it will drain your power bar very quickly. You're also going to see that Barrage has a 30 meter range, which is going to be the same as all your hunter skills in the Huntsman line. So let's have a look at the other bonuses we've got here. We've got no focus loss on movement, which is quite nice because as the Huntsman hunter you will be kiting quite a lot. So gameplay wise it's going to be quite similar to the lightning based Runekeeper, where you're kind of like dealing DPS on the run. So if you're unfamiliar with that kind of gameplay, it might be a bit strange at first if you're normally used to standing put and unleashing on the hunter. And you also have no mischance penalty for movement, so basically you're not going to miss just because you're moving like you normally would. So that's pretty sweet. So if we just select that, then we're going to get our two new skills. They're going to go on our skill bars there. So Huntsman tree, nice blue one on the left. let's have a look at the traits then. I will be going through the set bonuses on the left here once we get to the bottom of the main traits. So they may become active while we're doing this. Impact arrows. This increases our range damage. 5 ranks, 1% damage each. So we can do 5% extra range damage. Very nice. Quick draw. Reduces all inductions. So 5 ranks again, and each rank will give us minus 4% all skill inductions. So that's minus 20%. That's quite a bit. Since the Huntsman Hunter is going to be based around unleashing attacks quickly, that will mean we can chain together our attacks a lot faster with those reduced inductions. Strong Draw increases focus bow skill damage. So focus bow skills are the ones that consume focus. So things like penetrating shot, if you didn't know that. So each of these will give us 4% damage for penetrating shot and blood arrow. So 5 ranks of that, up to 20% more damage for those 2 skills. So that's obviously very nice. Next up, Quick Shot Focus. Quick Shot has a chance to generate 1 additional focus. So we get 4% chance to get that, 20% chance at maximum. Now, something to note, that is going to be in addition to the default bonus focus there. So if I update that, that's now gone up to an additional 20% chance to get that bonus focus, where it starts at 30% chance to apply. So that's obviously quite nice for generating focus, because you will be generating and spending focus a lot faster in the Huntsman tree. Next up we have Split Shot. By default that's going to be exactly the same as live. Looses multiple arrows at once, hitting several targets in a small area. And in fact that's going to be like the improved Split Shot, so you've got the 5 meter radius instead of 2 meter radius the moment you buy this skill. Although it doesn't seem to make any reference to the fact that each target hit will generate 1 extra focus, from my testing it does still seem to do that, so don't worry too much about that. But each rank will increase the max targets on that. So at the minute it's technically a 2 max target skill, but I've got a legendary item legacy which is increasing it by 1 at the moment. So it starts with max targets 2, you can upgrade it to 5. But then it's also affected by the AoE max targets legacy on your legendary items, so you can get that up even more, which would be pretty awesome. Let's just apply that. Next up we have Barbed Fury. Increases damage for any skill that deals damage over time. So things like your Barbed Arrow, your Scourging Blow there. So we can get that up to another 20% extra damage, going up 4% per rank. Very nice. Next up, Pathfinder. Increases Find the Path movement speed buff. Probably going to get less used than some of these damage traits, I'll put it that way. But some people would like Find the Path, so it's up to you guys if you want to spend your points on this. 2% per rank, 5 ranks, so we can get an extra 10% Find the Path movement speed, which will buff it from 15% to 25%. Precision increases the amount of focus Precision Stance generates. Now you normally get 1 focus per 5 seconds. Now spending points in this, you can get it up to 2 per 5 and 3 per 5, which means you have a lot of focus to burn, and that's pretty awesome. So apply those. Next up we have Blood Arrow, and that's going to work exactly the same as live. Still going to cost morale to use and free focus, and still has its cooldown, so we can do that. And then we've got a new skill here which is called Exsanguinate. Blood Arrow has a chance to grant a bonus attack called Exsanguinate that costs 1 focus and applies a strong bleed to the target. So rank 1 you have a 20% proc chance and you get the skill for it. Rank 2 you get 40% proc chance, and rank 3 you get 60%. So the proc basically unlocks that skill to be clicked, otherwise it will grade out. So the skill itself, a powerful attack that leaves the target bleeding. Does a nice bit of damage initially, and damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Now I believe that bleed should also be light damage, the same as the base skill, but can't confirm that just at the moment. And that has a long cooldown on that proc as well, so you can't spam that too often because that's pretty strong. But we can buy that. Improved intent concentration adds a power restore and reduces the cooldown of intent concentration by 30 seconds. So that's 3 minutes by default. We can reduce that to 2.5. Next up, we've got Strength of the Earth, which is going to be pretty much the same as on live. Ignore that tooltip for the minute because that's being modified by a set bonus. But the default one. Default one only gives power back, and the set bonuses upgrade it to have the morale heal, and something else which is new is the extra focus per second. So you get 1 focus point for every second you're channeling that skill, and it's got a 5-second channel time, so you can get 5 focus from this, which it doesn't do on live to my knowledge. That's on a 1 minute 30 cooldown, which should be the same as live. Just buy that. Shot through the heart. Heartseeker and Merciful Shot do additional damage to targets with bleeds on them. Just 1 rank to that. I don't think it does more per bleed. I think as long as it's got 1 or more bleeds on it, it will do the same amount of extra damage. Can't confirm that off the top of my head though, so take that with a pinch of salt. Next up we have Volley. Focus bow attacks have a chance to make your next induction bow attack instant. So to go over that again, focus bow attacks are the ones that are going to consume focus, like penetrating shot, whereas induction bow attacks are the ones that are going to have the inductions before they fire off, so things like swift bow. So there are 5 ranks at that. Each rank will give us 3% chance of removing the next induction time on my next bow attack, and that will stay active until we either do an induction bow attack, or if we're out of combat for 9 seconds it will just clear itself. So that's quite nice, and it doesn't matter too much about optimizing your rotations because that's never going to time out. You don't have to use it as the next skill, so you don't need to keep your eyes open for when it procs. But that can go up to 15% chance, so not too often, but still fairly often because you're going to be firing off these skills pretty fast. So we're going to buy that. Next up we have Bow of the Righteous. Recover power with each successful range skill. So this was a legendary trait on live, and it's going to work pretty much the same. Let's just check the amounts. Okay, on my same hunter, on live, this was giving plus 7.7 to 11 power. So that's been slightly buffed. It's giving plus 10 to plus 11 power. Not much difference there. But if you're having power troubles, might be worth spending the point in this. It's up to you guys if you want to spend it. And then our capstone skill is something quite interesting. It's called Rapid Fire. Rapidly draw and fire shots with ease. Focus bow skills have no focus cost or requirements. And we've got 10 seconds for this buff. On every harmful skill, plus 172 physical mastery rating. I'm not sure why there's 2 durations listed underneath that. One of those is obviously lying. But yeah, basically you click this, then you spam skills like mad. You get more physical mastery while you're spamming those skills, and you can go to town basically on a mob, so like spamming pen shot or something and just absolutely destroy it. So that's quite an interesting one, and hopefully you're watching a video of that while I'm talking about it. But that has a 1 minute 30 second cooldown, so you're not going to be spamming that too often, but it's great for getting a sudden massive burst of DPS in for maybe killing a mob, or maybe a boss fight where you've got a bit of a DPS race going on. So the set bonuses then, let's have a look at these. So for purchasing 5 ranks in any of your trees, you're going to get Resolute Aim. Reduces the induction movement penalty by 20%. So basically when you're using your induction skills, you will move slower than you would normally move. Especially, you can't just run at full speed while you're doing your inductions. You will go slightly slower, and that will reduce the penalty for that, basically. Fleetness is the second one for purchasing 10 ranks in your trait trees. This will grant the Fleetness proc. So, as I mentioned earlier, Fleetness has been removed, and it's now proc inside the Huntsman tree. So you have a 10% chance to trigger 10% run speed with a 20-second duration. I'm not sure if that stacks or not. My instinct says it probably doesn't stack, it will just reset the duration. But I'm not entirely sure on that one. For spending 15 ranks, you will get Barbed Hindrance. Increases barbed arrows damage and slow potency. Plus 30% barbed arrow damage. So, more deeps. Always very nice. Purchasing 20 ranks in any of your trees will give you Swift Recovery. Reduces the inductions of Barbed Arrow and Split Shot. 25% off the inductions of both of those skills. So again, that's going to be very nice. Fifth one, which will be 25 ranks bought, is in addition to power, Strength of Earth now restores morale and focus. So as I mentioned earlier, that's why that tooltip had morale and focus on that. And you'll get +1 focus per second while using Strength of Earth, so potentially up to 5 focus if you channel the whole thing. Purchasing 30 ranks will give you improved Fleetness. The Fleetness proc now restores focus in addition to granting a speed buff. So for every harmful skill, there is a 10% chance to get the 10% run speed we had already, plus an additional focus per 5 seconds over the course of 20 seconds. So for every 5 seconds, for 20 seconds, 1 more focus. So you got even more focus to channel into your skills and start spamming those ones out. And our capstone, if we purchase 35 ranks in any of our trees, we get Intensified Fire. Every attack made while Rapid Fire is active puts a stacking physical mastery buff on the hunter. So going back to that skill, where I saw the physical mastery rating, that part of the skill is only if you've got the 35 ranks in your tree. So bear that in mind. So that's it for the Huntsman. So next up, we'll be looking at the Bowmaster. Okay, so the Bowmaster then is a stationary long-range hunter dealing great damage. A stationary high-impact line that rains bursts of damage upon the assailant, using a rhythm of generating and consuming focus to maximise DPS. So as soon as we trait into this trait tree, we're going to get Pinning Shot, which is a brand new skill. Let's just pull up the tooltip for this one. So this is a range skill with a 20 meter range, which will probably get buffed as soon as we spec into our tree, which applies a 5-second route to the target, costs 3 focus and has an 8-second cooldown. So you can basically put a mob there, do a bit of extra damage before it gets to you. Damage will break the route after 1 second, but it will slow the mobs down a bit. And we're also going to get a few bonuses immediately upon traiting Bowmaster. So the first of those is going to be on every harmful skill, 10% chance to receive minus 0.5 seconds swift bow induction and minus 25% attack duration for 16 seconds. Now that is basically the Needful Haste buff, even though it's not referred to as Needful Haste there. So although you've lost the Needful Haste skill, it is still essentially in the game, and that's where it is. It's just a passive proc now. And additionally, the Bowmaster gets plus 10 meters max distance on its range skills, so that will get you back up to your 40 meter range as a hunter, whereas the other two lines are limited to 30 meter range. So let's spec into the tree and let's see what we've got then. First up, we have Heartseeker, a shot that cannot be missed, blocked, parried or evaded. So that's basically the same as live. No changes there, staying cooldown in induction. The first rank will unlock Heartseeker, and the second rank causes Heartseeker to deal additional damage to crowd-controlled targets. So obviously for best use, you need to apply some kind of CC to them before you use Heartseeker. So So we'll buy those. Next up we have True Shot. Increases the penetrating shots mitigation penetration. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? So for every rank of that, we get 2% target penetrating shot mitigation. So in other words, you will get through more of the enemy's mitigation when using penetrating shot. So since that's going to be pretty much a bread and butter DPS skill, you'll find that quite useful. Next up, Critical Eye. Increased critical chance. 5 ranks of that, each of those will give us 1% range critical chance. So obviously crits, very nice for a hunter, so we'll take those. Next up we have Press Onward. Now ignore the description in the Press Onward trait there, because that's wrong. That's for another trait that's coming up. But we still get the Press Onward skill. That has a reduced cooldown on, or from live I should say. On live it's 5 meters. In Helm Steep it's going to be reduced to 2 meters, the same meters, 2 minutes from 5 minutes. And it's also going to have a reduced induction time, because on live I think it's 4 seconds and it's now 2 seconds in Helm's Deep. So that's obviously quite nice, and we're going to purchase that. Swift and True. Increases swift bow's damage per rank. Max rank gives quick shot a chance to reduce the induction of swift bow. So we need to get to the 5th rank of that before we get the proc there. But each rank will give us 6% swift bow damage, which is obviously very nice. And if we purchase rank 5, we will get quick shot has a 20% chance to reduce the induction of swift bow by 100%. So in other words, free swift bow. So you'd need to be paying attention for that proc in order to execute your next swift bow. But I'm guessing that's probably a buff that will last the entire duration of combat. So maybe I can confirm that while editing this video together. So we'll purchase all 5 of those. Next up, Fast Draw. Induction bow attacks grant a stacking induction reduction buff. On each quick shot use, minus 6% bow inductions, and that will stack up 3 times. And I'm just okay. I was getting a bit confused then. So it starts off at minus 6%, it goes up to minus 10% at maximum. So if you stack that 3 times, the absolute maximum you could have is minus 30% bow inductions for 6 seconds. I'm not sure if it's consumable, that buff, or for that 6 seconds you can just spam your induction skills and get all the benefit. So I'll probably try and confirm that for you guys. Next up, Perseverance. Increases the power and morale gain of Press Onwards. So those aren't too clear, but that should be 5%, 10% and 15% extra morale and power returned by that for each of those ranks. So we'll grab that. Next up, Quick Escape. Low Cut applies a route and temporarily allows you to move without losing focus. No focus loss on movement for a short duration after using it, and Low Cut applies a 3-second route. So obviously that's quite nice. And Low Cut as well should be a free target skill, I think, and it's just being affected by Legacy, which is taken up to 4. So basically you can use an AoE skill to route everyone, relocate yourself a small distance away and start DPSing them while they're still rooted, without losing any of your precious focus points. So that can be quite handy for soloing, or if you get a big pull or something going on. Next up, Deadly Precision. Critical hits will generate 1 focus. It's only 1 point to this rank, but it means every time we get a crit or a devastate we will get an extra focus. So that obviously will help our rotations quite nicely. Next up is Strength. Increases the range damage bonus of Strength Stance. So Strength Stance normally is 10% bonus range damage, but with this trait we can take it up to 20% extra damage in Strength Stance. So very nice. Next up we have Rain of Arrows. Now this is going to be exactly the same as on live. It should be 5 targets by default. 10 meter radius, nice bit of damage. So the first skill will give you 1% Rain of Arrows critical chance, or plus 1% I should say, and plus 5% Rain of Arrows critical multiplier to increase that damage. You also get the skill there. And the second rank just basically doubles the bonus from using that skill of the increased crit chance and increased crit multiplier. So it's a bit less useful the second trait, but you know, it still gives you a bonus. But maybe you might want to skip that. Depends whether you want the next trait here, Hail of Arrows. On critical hit with Rain of Arrows, skill cooldown is reset. So rank 1, Rain of Arrows critical hits have a 50% chance to reset the cooldown of Rain of Arrows. And if you get rank 2, it's 100% reset chance. So you can spam that till the cows come home, which is probably the main reason to get through the second rank of that, to get onto this second trait, because obviously spamming Rain of Arrows is fun. Next up we have Draw Weight, increased induction bow skill damage. 1 point to next rank, plus 2% induction bow damage per rank, and that can go up to 10%. So again, more damage, always welcome. Next up we have Burn Hot. So the first rank of this will earn us the skill Burn Hot. Drawing on deep reserves, you let fly with great strength and precision. Increased range damage and decreased range skill power costs. Now that Burn Hot skill is basically exactly the same as on live, apart from the fact the cooldown has been reduced from 5 minutes down to 2 minutes. So you can use that a bit more often. But getting rank 2 in this will give us extra Burn Hot damage. It will reduce the cooldown of Burn Hot by another 30 seconds, and it will also further reduce the Burn Hot power cost. So the skill itself, not the power cost reduction buff. So obviously that's costing 1,200-ish, so you can save about 600 power by getting that second rank. So we're just going to buy that. Next up, Mercy Kill. Increases merciful shots crit damage. So 10%, 20%, 30% for each rank of those. After that we have Bodkin Arrows. Grants mitigation penetration to your bow attacks. So for every rank of that you get 2% mitigation bypass for bow attacks. So you just cut through a bit more of your target's mitigation. In other words, you do more damage. So 10% mitigation bypass at max rank for that one. And then the capstone skill here is called Upshot, which is obviously a brand new skill. This attack does additional damage for each point of focus consumed. So you can see there it's an attack that does a fair old bit of damage as normal, but it will consume every ounce of focus you have in your focus bar, but the more focus you have before using this skill, the more damage it's going to deal. And it's got a 45-second cooldown on that, so what you're probably going to want to do is build up to maximum focus, fire this off, and then just carry on with your normal rotation, and then just before this comes off cooldown, build up your focus up to maximum again, and then fire it off again, and rinse and repeat basically. But that will do tons of damage, so that one's pretty cool. So apply all those, and let's talk about the Bowmaster set bonuses then. So spending 5 ranks in your trait trees will get you Needful Haste increase. Increases the application chance of Needful Haste, so it's a 15% extra proc chance. So that will increase the proc chance to 25%. So that's obviously much more easy to trigger off. For 10 ranks you will get Shoot to Kill. This increases range damage by a flat 10%, so obviously more damage is always welcome. 15 ranks will get you Archer's Mark. Attacks have a chance to apply a stacking critical defense debuff on enemies. So on every harmful skill, 20% chance to get a minus 172 critical defense debuff on there. So that's not too much actually, but that will stack up. So if you're firing off your skills, 20% chance, you could probably stack that up quite a few times. So it should make a difference. For 20 ranks you will get Crit Magnitude. Increases the critical damage of all bow attacks. So you get an extra 10% crit damage off of every bow attack. So again, that's going to be a big damage boost, and it's certainly nice to have. For 25 ranks, you will get Swift Mercy. Swift Bow reduces the focus cost of Merciful Strike per hit. Merciful Shot is now usable at 70% or left on a target. So if they're below 70%, you can use this. So again, that's quite nice, because the problem with Merciful Shot is if you're on a boss or something, trying to get below that 50%, it means you're not able to use that skill for quite a long while. So that obviously goes some way towards making the skill a bit more useful. For 30 ranks, you will get Hidden Stalker. Greatly increases the stealth level of camouflage and increases ranged critical chance while camouflaged. So basically you can be in stealth and your opening hit is going to do a bit more damage. I'd imagine that's probably going to be a bit more useful in the Essen Wars rather than PvE, but you can probably still make use of that. So you'll get +8 camouflage stealth level, which is some buff, and +50% ranged critical chance while camouflaged. So you're pretty much guaranteed to crit from stealth there, on top of your normal crit chance. And for 35 points in your 35 ranks in your trees, you will get Marksman. Heartseeker and Upshot's cooldowns are reduced by a certain amount for every crit, and even more for devastating crits. So for every harmful skill, a crit will give you 2 seconds off the cooldown of Upshot and Heartseeker. The Devastate will give you 4 seconds off the cooldown of Upshot and Heartseeker. So as we've discussed, Upshot has 45 seconds by default. Heartseeker, if you've upgraded it, is 2 minutes. So you can take those down and get those in the rotation a lot more if you get the proc of that going. So that's the Bowmaster tree. So lastly, we have Trapper of Foes. Okay, so the Trapper of Foes Hunter uses AoE and CC range skills to hinder foes. Focuses on sustained damage, AoE and CC, controlling the flow of battle while providing buffs for allies to gain leverage on their opponents. So we're going to get 2 skills here for trading straight into this trait tree, and these are both brand new skills. So let's see, we've got Lingering Wound and Decoy. Bring those up. So Lingering Wound, arrows leave a Lingering Wound. It's going to do a fair bit of damage. It is a ranged skill, and it's also going to do some damage over time. So that's going to be fairly similar to Barbed Arrow. In fact, it's doing a little bit more damage than Barbed Arrow, but it's got different effects going on there. Whereas Decoy is going to drop a decoy that draws the attention of nearby foes. So that's going to be pretty similar to one of the trap things that a hunter can have crafted for them. I can't confirm or deny if that particular consumable is still in game. Possibly, since the other ones are. But this enables you to use that quite interestingly. So yeah, what else we got? We have all traps can be used while moving and have no inductions. So that's going to pretty much bring traps into your rotation a lot more. And as you'll see, there'll be quite an emphasis on the traps for this. So what have we got in our tree then? First up, we've got Tripwire. Now this is basically going to be the same as Set Snare on live. The skill's just been renamed, but it's still got the same icon, as you'll notice. Now obviously, because we've traded into this particular tree, there is no induction on this skill now, compared to live, which had a 2.5 second induction. This will always knock the enemy down, and potentially starting a fellowship maneuver as well. So this is particularly strong for soloing, so if a mob runs towards you, it's going to get stunned, and you can just unload your DPS into that to kill it before it gets himself back up, dusts himself off and comes towards you. But that's got a 1 minute cooldown, so that's still the same as live. Next up we have Natural Extracts. This will deal cause our damage over time attacks to have more damage over time damage. So that's going to be pretty nice for the other trait trees to be looking at picking up as well for some extra damage. 5% damage per rank up to a maximum of 25%. so that is quite nice. Next up we have survival gear, increased physical and tactical mitigation. So for each rank of that we'll get an extra 1% physical and tactical mitigation. So it gives the hunter a bit more defences, which is always welcome, particularly if you're a particularly squishy hunter. Row 2 we have combat traps. This does increased trap damage and reduced trap cooldowns. So for each rank we get 3 seconds cooldown of our trap skills. Now all our trap skills are currently at 1 minute, so that will reduce the cooldowns to 45 seconds. And traps will also do an extra 10% damage per rank, so 50% more damage is very nice. That's going to be quite a buff to those damage from the traps. Next up we have explosive arrow, which is a brand new skill. This fires an explosive arrow at your target. The damage from explosive arrow is distributed among all nearby enemies. So maybe you want to catch one guy on his own and deal loads of damage to him, or you just want to AoE down several enemies that are close together. This will spread out the damage. So bear that in mind when you use it, and that has a 30-second cooldown. And the radius for the distributed damage is 5 meters. But also note the range on this skill is 5.2 meters, so it's a bit of a short-range panic button if you're getting overwhelmed, particularly by loads of small mobs. So things like boggarts would be particularly useful for that. So we're going to purchase that. And next up we have elusive, increased partial evade chance. So we get 1% partial evade chance for each of those ranks. So if we partially evade an attack, it means it will do reduced damage. How much it deals depends on your stats, because you can increase your partial evade mitigation as well. That's probably not going to be massively high for a hunter. It would be for a warden if you're trading appropriately. But any reduction in damage is always welcome. But that comes off of our evade chance trait. So if you want to spend points on that, that's 5 ranks. Next up, we have Rain of Thorns. This is going to be pretty much the same as live. There is no changes at all to this whatsoever. It is going to be a 5 targets normal, but it's got max target 6 on there just because I've got a legendary item legacy which is affecting that. So rain 4 arrows down upon your enemies, allowing you to pin multiple targets. So it will do a 30-second route on anyone within 10-meter radius of your target. So that's obviously quite nice for doing large pools and then pulling enemies one at a time towards you. So that'd be quite nice for soloing. But there are 4 ranks in this. You get the skill at rank 1, and each rank will increase the damage by 10%, so 40% maximum damage, which is a fairly nice increase. Next trait is Explosive Powder. Increased damage for Deadly Decoy and Explosive Arrow. Each rank will give you 4% extra damage, up to a maximum of 20%. So that is obviously quite nice. Just apply some of those, get them on the skill bars. Next up is Endurance. Increases the block, parry and evade bonuses of Endurance stance. So you get a, I think it's 100% increase on the default. It's not. So it's about a third again and 2/3 for those 2 ranks. But you know, it's extra block, parry and evade. I'm not entirely sure what the block would be used for, because as far as I know hunters still cannot block, but yeah, it's a nice bit of extra defensive stuff, so you might find that useful. Next up we have Complex Mechanisms. Increased resistance penetration for all traps, so 2% per rank up to 10% at maximum. So that just means our traps are going to be a bit more effective. Next up we have Advanced Placement. Now, traps are one of those things in Helm's Deep that are going to be subject to ground targeting, or can be subject to ground targeting I should say, along with things like captain banners and that. Some players are quite happy to have ground targeting, others, particularly keyboard users, are not happy about ground targeting abilities. But your traps, normally you would just place them at your feet. But if you want to be able to do ground targeting, you can purchase these. So the first rank will allow us to do ground targeting of all of our traps. So if I just check, the range you can normally put these out is 10 meters away from you. Now rank 2 and rank 3 of this will increase the range up to 15 and 20 meters. So if you want to place ground targeted traps even further away, you can buy those extra ranks. If you don't care about that, or you don't care about ground targeting at all, you can probably skip that trait completely and save yourself 3 points. Next up, we have Piercing Trap, which is a brand new trap. Places a snare to slow the enemy and cause damage over time. So basically, this is the same effect that Set Snare had on live. Trap remains for 30 seconds after being placed, but it's got a 45-second cooldown. And this deals fire damage, this one. So I'm saying to bear in mind if you've got mobs that are particularly vulnerable to fire damage, or maybe immune to fire damage. That's a pretty nice little extra trap for your arsenal. So just apply that. Next up we have Armor Rend. Penetrating shot debuffs the target's block, parry and evade ratings. Now it doesn't actually say what we're getting for each rank of that, so I can't comment on that, but it'll probably be 5 times whatever rank 1 is at max rank. But that could be quite useful for basically causing more damage to a boss mob, perhaps, since they're less likely to block, parry, evade the rest of the group's damage. Next up we have Improved Distracting Shot. Reduces distracting shots cooldown and it increases the grace period of the applied days. So rank 1 we get 30 seconds off of distracting shot. So let's have a look. It is 3 minutes by default and it applies a 10-second daze. I'm not entirely sure why you need the grace period, because you can't spam chain this, or can you as part of the set bonuses? You can't. So I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of the grace period is, but you can get that down by 1 minute cooldown to put this on a 2-minute cooldown, and you can get an extra 2 seconds days off of that. So if I apply that, should now see, yep, 2 minutes, and it says it's only a 10-second daze, but that should technically be a 12-second daze. Next up we have Wounded Prey. Merciful Shot applies an additional damage effect if lingering wound is present. Potency is based off of the number of stacks on the target. So you can get a bit more damage once they get a bit lower. Use your Merciful Shot to get a bit of extra damage going off of that. Always welcome. Something I haven't mentioned yet is that yes, Trapper of Foes is probably still the weakest of the Hunter's trait lines in terms of DPS, which is just going to be the trade-off for having so much more CC and whatnot potential. But it's certainly a lot better than on live, where Trapper of Foes was terrible, shall we say. But anyway, the next one is called the One Trap. One Trap to rule them all. Places a trap at the target location that deals heavy damage up front. Now bear in mind, it's only saying target location, presumably because I've got the ground targeting enabled, because I've bought those traits. So places a trap at the target location that deals heavy damage up front and over time while slowing the enemy's movement speed. So it does quite a nice bleed, it does quite a nice bit of upfront damage. Again, it will last for 1 minute, but it's got a 45-second cooldown. That's pretty sweet. So set bonuses then. We have Deadly Decoy. Decoy now explodes after a short duration. Deadly Decoy explodes, damaging all enemies after 5 seconds. You get that after 5 ranks in any of your trees. For 10 ranks in any tree, you get Triple Trap. Set Trap becomes Triple Trap, placing 3 traps instead of 1. Set trap is now called triple trap, placing three traps instead of one, saying the same thing twice. So yeah, that's pretty nice. And like your triple trap consumable item, that's pretty much be exactly the same. Just going to place 3 of those in a triangle. For 15 ranks in your trees, you get Master Trapper. So this adds various effects to our traps. So set trap gives the enemies a 15% incoming damage debuff, so you can deal more damage against a target that's walked into your trap. Snakebite trap restores morale to all those who hit the target, so that's very nice. And that's probably going to be your main source of healing ability in the Trapper of Foes line. And Deadly Decoy has a 10% incoming critical chance debuff, which will apply to the enemy. So you've got more chance to crit them once they have a Deadly Decoy explode in their face. For 20 ranks, we will get Strong Intimidation. Increases Hunter's fear duration and reduces the chance of their fear being resisted. So extra 5-second fear duration, a minus 5% fear resist chance. So that's basically going to buff your Bard's Arrow to be quite nice there. For 25 ranks in your trees, you'll get Heightened Senses. Increases the hunter's stealth detection and evasion, adding a chance on evade to reduce the active cooldown of all trap skills. Now that will include the one trap. So on every skill targeted at you, if you evade or partially evade, 5 seconds off of your trap cooldowns. Now remember, we do have these traits over here to increase our partial evade. Was there one for evade? I can't remember, but yeah, we can basically start spamming traps if we get those proccing quite a lot. Oh, there we go, 5% evade chances on this trait. And you also get extra stealth detection, which is kind of where the trait gets its name, from the stealth detection trait in Live. For 30 ranks in your trees, you will get Purge Poison. Purge Poison now cures your entire fellowship. And then lastly, for 35 ranks in your trees, you will get Sturdy Traps. Increases the grace period of your traps and removes any focus loss from movement. Plus 5 seconds traps grace period and no focus loss on movement. So that's pretty sweet. So as you can see, that the Hunter's Trapper of Foes line is all about literally trapping them. Dealing damage to them while they're trapped or suffering from the effects of traps, then sticking down more traps, more DPS, and just kind of following that kind of rotation in your gameplay. And it's also pretty fun to just stick down every trap you have known to man in just one big minefield and then just pulling stuff into it. Can be quite a laugh. It's a bit like those game shows where contestants have to navigate an assault course. But yeah, so that's the Trapper of Foes line. So that's all the Hunter ones covered there. So hopefully you guys can understand what's going to happen to your Hunters going into Helm's Deep. And hopefully you'll be happy with the changes. But I'm sure everyone's going to be hurting at the loss of their Agile Rejoinder at the very least. So I hope you guys have enjoyed watching that. And stay tuned for more class videos as I record them going towards launch. There's also many more beta preview videos on my channel, so check those out if you want to learn more about the changes coming in Helm's Deep. So thanks guys for watching, and see you later.